Alrighty guys, welcome back to Balako's Fish Room. So today we're going to be doing the fish room update for the month of June 2022. And so I thought I'd start in front of the Maskaheros Argenteus tank and the Convicts. Pretty much I like to start in front of this tank because it's a nice way to kind of ease into the actual fish room, but I kind of feel like this guy's a bit of a mascot for the channel. Old Cronus here, he's probably the biggest fish that I've got, but he is definitely my favorite fish to sit and watch. That's why I've got him in the main tank that's in the living room. But anyway, I guess we'll jump straight into the video. So pretty much in this tank there isn't really an update. As the people that have watched previous videos and everything, they know that the main goal of this tank is to get the male and female, so Cronus and Rhea, the Argenteus, to pair up and hopefully spawn. And the thing that I kind of want to touch on today is the fish that I've got in here. So I guess you could say in Australia, the Argenteus are up there with one of the more rarer fish to be able to keep. They're not very common, and when you do find them, there is a pretty good price tag on them. And then you've got them in with the Convict cichlids, which are probably the most readily available and cheapest of the American cichlids to keep. And the reason that I've got them like this, I've got the more expensive and the more rare with the cheaper and more readily available, is because they just match really well in terms of what I'm trying to achieve. So I've heard a lot of times that the best way to get the Argenteus to pair up is to actually grow a group out together and keep them as a group until, you know, for their entire lives. And the reason behind this is the aggression is really dispersed, and it gives the fish a lot more competition and a lot more pretty much a lot more targets to aim their aggression at, which is pretty much the main thing that we're always trying to do with South and Central American cichlids, is just balancing the aggression in the tanks. So I've found that the Convict cichlids are very robust. This is the other male Convict. He's just gone inside the log there, but there he is there. So I've got two male Convicts in here. One's white, so that's this one here, and we've got the bigger blue classic Convict there. I've got three female Convicts that are white. They've got this really nice orange color as well through them, which is I didn't really realize these guys existed until fairly recently. But one of them, and it's this one down here, but its left eye, I don't know if we'll be able to see it, but it's actually blind in one eye. It's totally silver, so this one just kind of hides away and stays out of the action, but that's okay. But the rest of them, the rest of these guys, so we've got the classic Convicts there, so they're just really good. They stand up to the Argenteus. They make the tank really active, but they're not hurting each other. They're constantly being territorial, and it just gives the big Argenteus a lot of distractions, primarily the big guy here. Just gives him a lot to keep an eye on, because he's definitely the boss of the tank. So if anything tries to mess with him, he definitely gets them back in order. But yeah, he's the boss of the tank. These guys just keep kind of everything moving and keeps him distracted. And the female Argenteus pretty much just lives in this log and this terracotta pipe. So as long as there's no aggression towards each other in terms of the Argenteus, I'm totally fine with how this tank is going. And yeah, other than that, the other little update as well is these guys actually spawn. So the white male and the blue female that you can see here, these little dots that are poking around the sponge filter and everything just down there, so that's a bunch of the offspring. So obviously I won't be growing any of those out because they'll come out in all different colors and everything. So but yeah, it's whenever there's any fry in a tank, I know that just everything's working correctly. So all right, guys, this video will probably end up being way too long, so we better move on to the next tank. We'll go over and look at the rams, and then we'll head down to the fish room. Okay, so we're in front of the black rams. So unfortunately, we lost one of the rams. I'll see if I can focus in here. These guys are the hardest fish to film, in my opinion. There we go. It's kind of better. So we actually lost one of the rams, unfortunately. Don't know why. It was just dead in the bottom of the tank one day. But the other thing you'll notice about this tank, we've taken out all of the red-based snook fry, or the juvies. Pretty much the rams, they weren't trying to eat them, but they were very territorial. And every day I was coming out and there'd be a red-based snook floating on the surface of the tank, and I've raised them since they were, you know, obviously babies. So I've had them for about 4 months, and it's pretty disheartening to see them to lose any of those ones. So I lost a few in the space of a couple of days. So I took them out. So I think I've got about 8 of those left, and unfortunately the red-based snooks, they keep eating their eggs, or I'm not sure if they let them hatch, but they definitely eat their fry. I haven't seen any free swimming fry or any wrigglers to be able to pull in a while, since actually that first batch. So hopefully, but they've spawned about 4 or 5 times since then. But anyway, so I've pulled those the red-based snooks out. They're out in the fish room, so I'll show you those guys when we get out there. Also in this tank, I think there's about probably 15 peppermint bristlenose. They're all about 1 to 2 inches, so they're getting to a good size. I'm actually selling those to a buddy of mine, Mark. So he's coming to get those. We're getting a new batch of fish, which I will do an unboxing on and show you guys exactly what we're getting. That should actually arrive tomorrow or the next day, I'd say. But we've got some really cool fish. We've got one brand new species, which is actually one of the more rare fish that you don't see often in Australia. So really excited to show you guys that. But other than that, I think it's about time we headed down to the fish room. So yeah, let's get down there. Okay guys, so I've just walked into the fish room, so I'm gonna start off in front of the Festae tank because they are actually out and about. So you can see they're getting on really well. The male and the female that are here, they're not really showing much attention to each other in terms of spawning or anything like that, but they're, you know, just living together well. So they usually freak out when I get too close to the tank. It's definitely one of the things that I've noticed is the Festae. They're one of the more skittish fish that I've kept. Even at this size and this age, they're very skittish fish. So if we get closer, they'll probably freak out, but hopefully not. So that's the male. He's probably, you know, without overestimating, he's a solid 10 inches, and the female here, she's probably a solid 7 inches herself. She's not as long, but she's stocky and thick. So I'd say over the next couple of months, we're probably actually going to see a spawn from these two. But yeah, they're doing really well. I had the silver dollars in here with them, but that didn't really work out. The silver dollars, for some reason, and they're pretty big silver dollars, so maybe they haven't encountered aggressive fish, but they just didn't leave this top corner. They just stayed in this top corner and didn't move for about a week and a half. So I had to get them out because they weren't eating or anything. And even in the new tank, they're still quite skittish, which I find bizarre, because I was led to believe that silver dollars were really hardy fish and could handle a lot. And I've kept silver dollars with cichlids before and it's worked, but they were small, so maybe you need to raise them all up together from small. I'm not too sure. But anyway, you can see these guys are doing really well. I'll see if I can get a bit of food, and I'll show you. Actually, I think I've got some mealworms instead of some pellets, so I'll see if I can get them to eat some mealworms. Alright, so we've got some mealworms here. We've got a few laid out there, so we'll see if we can get a couple. Alright, so we've got these mealworms. Now, whenever I put my hand above the surface of the tank, I'm going to film the fish, but my hand's going above the tank right now, and they'll probably freak out. I don't know, they're actually doing really, really well. There we go, there's some mealworms in there. And the male got that one. There's still a few floating at the top of the tank. Maybe she looks like she's seen them. Let's go a couple more. Once they float, they always go crazy for them. Okay, we've got a couple more here. There we go. They both just got one. Another one's floating down now. They're an absolutely gorgeous fish. These are the Festae. I'm actually surprised with how active and interactive they're being with me today. Usually, as soon as I approach the tank, they just swim away. So this is a good sign. All right, let's move on to the next tank. All right, so this is the aquarium straight below the Festae. So this has the breeding pair of Salvini, which they've claimed this little cave section under here. So the male and female are under there. Then we've got some of the blue eyes and the clown lurchers. So there's no real update in this tank. The Salvini had a batch of fry. There's probably a good 500 fry that I pulled, but I use them as feeders for the red-based snook fry because there's Salvini absolutely everywhere at the moment in all my local fish shops, and I didn't really want to raise any out, so I'll just give these guys a few pellets. They're all doing pretty well. These blue eyes are pretty good dilly fish for the Salvini because the Salvini are really, really aggressive towards each other, and they only seem to be aggressive directly after a spawning, and they go through a stage where they're extremely aggressive, fighting all the time. Then there's no interest in each other, and then they're back to spawning again. So it'd be interesting to see how these guys go because I pulled all their fry. So over the next week or so, we should be able to see if they go back to normal, if they have paired off perfectly and they're not going to be aggressive towards each other, or if it's not going to work. So, but other than that, there's not really much else to update on this tank, so we might just move straight on to the next rack. Okay, so sorry about the glare, guys. I don't really want to turn all the lights off and everything like that. It usually spooks the fish. But I'm standing here in front of the red-based snooks. So they've got this big 6 foot, 6x2x2 tank to themselves, and they keep spawning on the rim of this pot here, but for some reason they keep eating all the fry or eating all the eggs. So hope maybe it's something to do with the lighting, because the only time I've seen them have free swimming fry, they had no lighting and they were kind of in a tank in the bottom of the fish room before we did all the renos. So maybe I need to just keep the lights off or something like that. I might try that the next time I see eggs. But there's not much to update on this tank. The thing that I really like about this one is the pothos. The roots are just going absolutely crazy. You can see it's growing really well at the top here. There's heaps and heaps of duckweed, and they're in pretty much all of the tanks now. So the water's keeping really, really clean. And I still do my weekly water changes, so I know everything's perfect, but I don't need to change as much water, and if I do miss a water change or, you know, leave it for a couple of days, I know it's going to be all good. The other thing that I've got in this tank now, I've got growing at the top here, is a red mangrove. So you can see it's starting to shoot out these little roots at the bottom. So hopefully over the next couple of months, this actually starts sprouting some leaves. We've got one of the other mangroves that have actually, it hasn't sprouted leaves yet, but it's showing, it's just pushing out one at the moment. So I reckon in the next couple of weeks, we'll see some leaves come out of that one. But other than that, there's not much else to update on this tank. So we might just pan down straight away to the bottom tank here. Actually, we'll give the snooks a little bit of food. So I've got the sinking cichlid gold by Hikari. Put those in there. The size of these guys' jaw is absolutely crazy. So that's a female that you can see there. She's fattening up. She'll probably spawn again. Her tube looks like it's about to drop. And obviously the big male here. Okay, all right. So down to this tank. So this is the aquarium with the new jaguars. So we've got six jags growing out. I think we've definitely got a couple of males because they're quite a bit bigger than the rest. So I'll get a bit of food in here, see if we can get them out. When these guys spawn, they have a couple of thousand fry at a time, so they're one of the more readily available fish. But I think, in my opinion, when a fish is more readily available, it's like the convicts. I just think it means they've evolved a lot stronger. They're easier to keep. They're easy to breed. They breed in such large numbers that it just means their evolutionary chain is stronger than some of their other counterparts. So they're really cool fish. And then we've got the silver dollars at the back. They're not doing much at all, but they seem to be doing a lot better and actually swimming around a little bit as compared to the Festae tank. So we'll move on to the next tanks, and we might finish. I was gonna say we might finish on these guys, but we might just cover off the fry now. So we've got this setup. We had to actually change the pump that we had on the fry tanks. The pump that we had was too strong, so it was blowing the fish all around the place. So what we've done, the red base snooks that we had inside, so they've actually moved into the center here. This is where we had the what were they? The Salvini. So excuse the dirty tank, but this is the red base snooks. They're about an inch to an inch and a half now, so they're definitely over 5 centimeters. So these guys, I'm probably going to send them down to Chris, who supplies me with a lot of my fish and who's sending up the new batch of fish in a couple of days. So that will be really cool. So there was about, I'd say 400 or 500 Salvini fry in here, and I didn't move them. So these guys had a really good feed. Next to them, we've got our second batch of black nasties. So the nasties are doing really well. These guys have doubled in size in about a week. So they're doing really well. I've got them on that new fish food that I got from Chris, and also some, the baby brine shrimp that I showed you. And then over on this side, we've got probably the most fry that we've got at the moment. These are from the marbled fenestratus. So we've got about probably 200 to 300 marbled fenestratus fry in here. They're all scattered around. Most of them are behind the sponge filter or eating off the sponge filter at the moment. But I'm power feeding these guys. I'm changing the water in this thing every 2 days. Even if I'm just siphoning in some water out of one of the bigger tanks, I know that it's a lot fresher. So it's, they're going really well. I pulled them probably a week ago now, and they're about 2 to 3 millimeters. So hopefully I can raise these guys up. The thing I'm really excited about these guys is when you raise them up, you can see all their different patterns and everything like that, because they're the marbled type. So I'm looking forward to selectively choosing, growing these guys up to a good size where I can actually see how they're going to pan out long term, and raising these guys up and selecting some really cool patterns and the ones that I really like. So really excited that we got those guys to spawn, and yeah, we might head over to the parents of these guys now to do a bit of an update. Okay, so here's the big male marbled fenestratus. So compared to the other male that we had, he's way smaller. Sorry, this guy's probably 8 to 9 inches, and the other male we had was definitely 30 centimeters, so a good 12 inches long. But I'm really glad that we got this guy to fertilize the eggs, because he's got nicer pattern, in my opinion, more of that really nice maroni red, and really nice maroon on the fins there as well. So really nice fish. And then we've got this big female who just produced, I'd say she laid about 1,500 to 2,000 eggs, and a lot of them were unfertilized. So I'd say that's more to do with this guy being probably his first spawn. So I'd say on the next time that they spawn, there's going to be a massive amount of eggs and a massive amount of fry that are going to be swimming around. But you can see they've got a few fry left in the tank. I'd say there's probably around 20 or 30 just scattered around. So this guy, he was really pale. I found the spawning dress was more of this color. The female is a really pale maroon, and then the male is vibrant again. So they both went really pale for the time that they had all the fry and the eggs and everything, and he's kind of gone back to normal now. And I'd say they'll start picking off these fry, and they'll both be back to normal in the next probably couple of days. In this tank, so most of these marbled fenestratus and the classic fenestratus that you can see here, I'll actually be sending these guys down to Chris, so he can hopefully grow them out and potentially get a pair. The reason is I've got an established pair now, being the Toodles and Tink, so I've got those guys now. So I don't really want to have too many other fish in here or risk losing any of these fenestratus that we've got here. So I'm probably going to keep a couple, just to have a few more fish in the tank, just in case something does happen with these guys here. I've got options. But yeah, I'll be sending most of those guys down to Chris. All right, so I might head down to the next tank that's below this one. So this is the Green Texas. So bit of sad news about this tank. We've got the big male that's here, but unfortunately we lost the female. She got that really white fluffy fungus that developed over her body, and once the fungus fell off, she was actually, it looked like it had eaten away a lot of her flesh, and she was just floating at the top of the tank. So yeah, we had to get rid of her. So I'm not sure what we're going to do. I might see if somebody wants to buy this big male, because we do have some new fish coming, so it's a bit unfortunate. I might just hold out for the actual Carpentis rather than do the Green Texas, because we are getting some new fish. So I might move all these guys on. Bit of a shame, but anyway, not much else to update on this tank. See, he's absolutely gorgeous. Look at those markings. So I'm not really sure exactly what differs a Carpentis from a Texas, but I'm sure if I just wait for a Carpentis, it'll come along eventually. So anyway, let's move on to the next rack. Okay, so we're on the final rack. So we've got the black nasties, and we'll finish on the Trimacs below. But these guys are just awesome. They're the best parents, and the harmony in this tank is pretty amazing. The big male, he's not aggressive in the slightest. They keep kind of shaking and shuffling up, because the top of the water, it's extremely clear, and they keep disturbing the bottom of the tank. And I think what they're doing is they're shaking it all up to give the debris, what's it called? Oh, it's called something. It'll come to me. But all this stuff that's floating around in the tank, the fry that are swimming around, they can eat that. It's going to annoy me. Anyway, detritus, all the detritus that it's stirring up, all that feeds the fish, and you can see the male and the female were doing that before, so it's pretty cool. The other thing I really like is the female. She just goes this jet black, and I'll see if I can get a really close in shot of her. But that jet black that she turns, it's just absolutely gorgeous, and the scales look like dragon scales. Looks absolutely fantastic. It's almost like a matte black, which is really, really cool. Anyway, so we've got, the big male and the female that are over here. And then we've got this other female that's off in the corner. Like I said, like the harmony in this tank's pretty good. The male seems to go between one or the other, but he doesn't go between both at the same time. So the female kind of hangs out at this end, and then when it's his turn to spawn with her, he pays all the attention to her and then not the other one. So that's just what I've noticed. But I left half of the recent batch of fry in here just to see how they go. They've been swimming around with the parents for over a week, and the parents haven't seemed to want to pick them off or anything, which is really cool. So maybe we'll get some, it'll be interesting to see the different growth rates from the fish that we leave with the parents compared to the fish that we're growing out ourselves, which will be, very interesting. All right, so we might head down to the last tank, which is the Trimacs. We'll get a bit of food for these guys. All right, so there's the big one, the big Trimac down there. So he's probably getting close to 4 inches, which is pretty crazy. The smallest that we've got is probably 1.5 to 2 inches. But the thing that I'm actually looking for mainly is the markings, because I know eventually they'll all get to about the same size. Like this guy might get a little bit bigger than the other ones. But I'm looking for the really defined markings. So what I'm going to be doing, if I get a big male like this guy, I'm actually, once I can see, all right, well, its markings aren't really divided and defined, I'm actually going to sell these ones off and keep selling one off at a time or a couple off at a time here and there until we get the exact Trimac that we're looking for. Because you can see on ones like that one here, it's got more defined spots that go up its side rather than just a big black line like this guy. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they grow. So I'm probably going to be selling this guy off over the next month or so, and then we'll see which other one takes over, because generally once there is a big fish out of the batch, that bigger fish will continually get more food than the rest and will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I want to sell off the bigger one, let the rest catch up, and see how their markings turn out. So I've got a bit of food here, so I'll just drop that in there. Because you can see the male, like he just dominated. He just took about probably 5 or 6 of those pellets straight off the bat. And the other ones, they just can't eat as much. So I guess once they start to get a bit of an advantage, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, that's probably it for these guys. I forgot one last tank, which is right next to it. These are the bigger black nasty fry. So they're at about probably 1 centimeter now. So getting to a good size. They're a lot bigger than the other nasty fry. So I'll probably transplant these guys into a bigger tank once they get to maybe 2 centimeters to 1 inch. Probably 2 centimeters actually. That might be too much for this little tank. It's only around, I think it's a 30 or 40 litre tank. So yeah, I'll probably have to upgrade them pretty soon, but they're doing well. There's probably about 100 nasties in there, so can't wait to raise those guys up, get them to a good size, and sell them off to a fish shop. So alright guys, that's probably it from me. We'll finish out in front of this guy who's got his mouth absolutely chockers full, because he's absolutely greedy. But yeah, if you like these kind of videos, like, subscribe, all that jazz, leave a comment in the comment section below. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Cheers. Bye.